Hi, this is Lesson 0, Sessions 3 and 4, where we will be finding perimeter. The learning target for these lessons is I can multiply a whole number of up to 4 digits by a 1-digit whole number, and I can multiply two 2-digit numbers. Try it. Make sense of the problem. Keegan builds a fence to make a rectangular dog pen in his backyard. The pen is 30 feet long and 24 feet wide. How much fence does Keegan use to make the dog pen? We're going to go back through this problem and we're going to answer these 3 questions that we see down here at the bottom. What is the problem about? What are you trying to find out? And what information is important? So go back through and read to answer the first question, what is the problem about? Once you have found what the problem is about, please underline that in your workbook. Okay, the problem is about Keegan building a fence to make a rectangular dog pen in his backyard. The second question that we are answering is, what are you trying to find out? So read through the problem and underline, and if you have a different color, that's great, but if you don't, that's fine. Underline what you're trying to find out. If you need to pause the video to do that, if I'm going a little too fast, that's totally fine. We are trying to find out how much fence does Keegan use to make the dog pen? Finally, what information is important? So read through one more time, and we're going to circle the information that is important. This is the information that we're actually going to use to solve the problem. So the information that we need to use is that it's 30 feet long and 24 feet wide. So this is how we can make sense of the problem. We've identified what the problem is about. We have identified what we're trying to find out, and we know what information we're going to use. All right, now it's your turn. Go ahead and read through this problem again, and I'll read it to you if you can follow along. And then when we are finished reading it, I would like you to pause your video so you can solve this on your own using the strategy that you choose. And then when you have it solved in your workbook, go ahead and press play again, and we'll go over some solutions together. Keegan builds a fence to make a rectangular dog pen in his backyard. The pen is 30 feet long and 24 feet wide. How much fence does Keegan use to make the dog pen? So you should be pausing the video so you can solve and then press play as soon as you have it finished. All right, you should have this problem solved in your workbook. So now it's time to discuss. And I know if you're watching this video at home and you're by yourself, this part might be a little bit hard, but you might just go through these questions and talk it through to yourself, or you can talk to your invisible friend or a stuffed animal or a family member or even your pet and go through what your thinking process was. Some discussion starters to start sharing your thinking are I knew, so I don't understand how did you get started? Or I disagree with this part because. So make sure you're having those discussions and then press play again to move on to our various solutions. So now it's time to compare strategies. You can use pictures to help find the perimeter of a rectangle. So one strategy that you could have used is to use a picture. Draw a picture to represent the fence. You can use color to highlight the sides that have the same length. So we see that this red color down here is 30 feet, which means that the opposite side is also 30 feet. Those opposite sides are equal. And this side is 24 feet, which means the opposite side is also 24 feet. Then you can add the lengths to find out how much fence Keegan uses. So you can add all of the sides. Perimeter is the total of all of the sides. So when you add them all together, you would get 108 feet. So if you would travel the distance all the way around this rectangle, you would go 108 feet. Another strategy that you could have used to solve this problem is to use a formula to find the perimeter of the rectangle. The formula for perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Because there's 2 lengths, you can multiply the length times 2 to find the total of the lengths. And because there's 2 widths, you can multiply the width times 2 to find the total of the widths. So when we're looking at this formula, we have 2 times 30, and so the total of our lengths is 60, plus 2 times 24, and so the total of these widths is going to be 48. And then that gives us a little bit easier math that we can do, where we get 108 feet. Connect it. Make connections to explain your thinking. You should be on your workbook following along. If you ever need to pause because I'm going a little bit too fast, please do that to make sure you have all of this filled out. Number 1, use the formula in Model It to find how much fence Keegan uses to make the dog pen. So our formula was that the perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And when we solve that, 2 times the length, we got 2 times 30 is 60, plus 2 times 24, we got 48. And when we add those together, we have 108 feet. Number 2, Keegan uses the formula P, which stands for perimeter, equals 2 parentheses L plus W to find how much fence he needs. Does Keegan's formula work? Why or why not? Now, I know a lot of students sometimes get confused about this part right here because it looks like there's not actually a mathematical sign right there. So just keep this in mind. Anytime you see a number or a letter that's right next to the parentheses, this right here means to multiply. So this 2 that's right next to the parentheses means you are going to multiply 2 by the sum of the length and the width. So let's try that out. So we have 2 times, and the length was 30, plus the width was 24. Okay. And so if I have 30 plus 24, that's going to give me 54. So if we write that in with the rest of our problem, we have 2 times 54. And when we do that math, we get 108 still. Now, why does that work? Think about that for just a moment. You might want to pause the video so you can consider that question and then press play when you think you have an idea. So actually, this works because of a property called the distributive property. When we're multiplying across these parentheses, we can distribute this 2, and it's like multiplying 2 times 30 plus 2 times 24, which is basically the same thing we see up here. 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Which formula do you think is easier and why? This is up to you. I'm not going to tell you which one you think is easier. So go ahead and pause and write in your answer, and then we'll move on to number 4. Number 4, how are the methods for finding the perimeter of a rectangle in Picture It and Model It alike? So we're going to go back and look at Picture It real quick. So Picture It, we have 30 plus 24 plus 30 plus 24. We drew the picture and then we added all of the sides. Then in Model It, we have 2 times 30 plus 2 times 24. So how are those alike? Well, I'm thinking that when we had this Picture It, we're adding the 30 feet twice. So that's like 2 times 30. And we were adding the 24 feet twice. So that's the same as 2 times 24. So basically, you're doing the same math. It just looks a little bit different. You're using a slightly different operation. Number 5, reflect on what you've learned. Look back at your Try It, Strategies by Classmates, and Picture It and Model It. Which models or strategies do you like best for finding the perimeter of a rectangle, and explain? This is on your own. Again, I'm not going to tell you what you think is the best or what you find it easiest. So write down your reflection, and then when you are ready to press play again, when you have that done in your workbook, then we'll move on to the next section. Now it's time to apply your thinking to a new problem. Number 6. Bianca puts a fence around a rectangular garden. The garden is 15 feet long by 10 feet wide. How much fence does Bianca use? Show your work. This I would like you to do on your own. So pause and do this problem independently. This is where you apply your own thinking to this problem. And then when it's finished, press play again and we'll go over the solution. Okay, so I'm actually going to make a picture of this garden so that we can visualize it. Here's my rectangle. And it says that it's 15 feet long. So let's write 15 feet for the length. And it is 10 feet wide. Okay, and here's our 15 and 10. How much fence does Bianca use? Show your work. So when it's fence, it's going to go all the way around the outside, which means that we are finding the perimeter of this rectangle. Perimeter goes all the way around the shape. So I am actually going to use the multiplication formula. So I'm going to say 2 times 15 plus 2 times 10. You'll notice I used that parenthesis trick here where if it's right next to the parentheses, that means to multiply. And we do remember our order of operations, multiplication always comes first in the problem before addition. So we're going to be solving this, then we are solving this, then we'll be adding them together. So we have 2 times 15, which is 30, plus 2 times 10, which is 20. So that means that Bianca needs 50 feet of fence to go around her garden. Now, could you use a different equation for this? Absolutely. The most important thing is that you land on this 50 feet. All right, that is the end of this session. I hope you join me for the next video where we go over session 5.